comparison, we've got two of the most hardcore hot hatches money can buy. Or hardcore is probably not the best term. The Honda Civic Type R and the Hyundai i30N are probably more hardcore in terms of being, motorsport or track ready. These two are just, I guess the better way to put it is the most powerful and the craziest hot hatches money can buy. Both four-wheel drive turbo. I've got the MY 2026 Volkswagen Golf R versus the recently updated 2025 Toyota GR Corolla. Now this isn't a completely even comparison because I've got the manual GR Corolla versus the Golf R, which is only available with an automatic in Australia anyway. You can get an 8-speed automatic option for the GR Corolla now. It's just a torque converter auto. The reason I compared these two is because I've got quicker results out of the manual compared with the new auto. Probably because you can really get the engine revs right up on the spot to take off for a leaping start, whereas the automatic, it does have a launch control function, but it's just a torque converter, so it's not a complete launch control. It just lets you build the engine revs up a bit on the brake pedal, release the brake pedal, and away you go. Whereas the manual, you can really rev it right up and just launch off the mark. While the Golf R comes with a 7-speed dual clutch automatic with proper launch control. So it disengages the engine and gearbox, allowing you to build the engine revs right up to whatever it's predetermined at. I think it's about 4,000, and then it's clutch packs engage and away you go. Under the bonnet in the Golf, you've got a 2-litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder, 245 kilowatts an hour for the update, and 420 Newton meters, and that's paired with a all-wheel drive system and that 7-speed dual clutch automatic. And then under the bonnet in the Corolla, you've got a 1.6-litre turbo petrol 3-cylinder engine, now 221 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters, paired to a all-wheel drive system. So as you can see, the Golf R has the advantage here with more power and more torque. It is heavier though. This weighs 1,527 kilograms curb weight versus 1,490 for the GR Corolla. Even so, put that into a calculator, you get a power to weight ratio of 148.3 kilowatts per tonne in the Corolla and about 160 kilowatts per tonne in the Golf R. So yeah, the Golf R should take this, but I think the Corolla has the potential to score a better time because it's got a manual. So very variable performance. You could sit here all day and get a different result each time, whereas the Golf R is quite consistent. I've done a few runs and very consistent each run. As usual, I'll set up the tripod here on this private road for the full quarter-mile test, including down at the start line, around here the 1/8 mile, and then the quarter-mile just down there. That's roughly the end of the tripod will be roughly at the finish line, the quarter-mile. I don't know exactly, but I know that when the V-Box clicks over a quarter-mile, you're kind of around that area. It might be about a metre or so out where the tripod is actually sitting. The figures at the end are the best result I got with the V-Box. So usually I'll do the V-Box testing first while the cars are nice and cold or cool, particularly with the manual Corolla. They're the best result that I got. So multiple runs, they're just the best result that I got. And then the footage that you see of the in-car, like the speedo shot, that's just I kind of try to replicate the best takeoff that I did for the V-Box, if that makes sense. So it's not actually a timed run, it's just an example of how I did it with the V-Box, if that makes sense. Because I do multiple runs with the V-Box, especially with the manual, because it takes quite a while to get a really good time out of it. I mean, you can fluke it and just get one, excellent run straight away, but yeah, it just takes a little bit of time. Then the footage is just spliced together. They take off at the exact same moment, so that kind of represents what a drag race would look like if they were both here. Unfortunately, I can't drive two cars at once. Let's see how they go. There we go, as you probably expected, the Golf R takes the win there for the 0 to 100 and the quarter mile. I think it's a lot down to the, well, extra power and torque, but also the DSG, the dual clutch automatic, with the launch control allows you to just pounce off the line better than the manual and more consistent than the manual. But you've got the quarter mile of 13.2 at 173 in the Corolla, and then something like 12.9 in the Golf R. Very quick little hatchback. And I like that it is kind of subtle, like you don't think that it's that quick, but then when you really get up it and be a bit aggressive with it, it just responds and goes, yeah, okay, let's go. It's actually very, very quick. The Corolla is, you kind of get the sense that it is quick just driving it. I mean, manual, it's a little bit clunky and so on, like any manual, I mean. So you kind of get this sense that it is pretty sporty, whereas this, you can fly under the radar. You could take your mother-in-law for a drive and don't tell her anything, and then suddenly launch off at the lights or something like that. She would give her a nice scare. But yeah, with the Corolla, you kind of get the sense that it is a performance machine. What would I take out of these two? Well, to own, I really love the Corolla, but I like the Golf R for every day, if that makes sense. I like the refinement that this presents. It doesn't mean it's a better car, it's just my personal taste. It's like saying, what's your favorite color? I just like this style. It suits me more, but I can totally understand why anybody would buy the Corolla over the Golf R. You've got Toyota resale and all that sort of thing, reliability. The Golf is a little bit more expensive as well. It's about $3 more for the, well, this is compared with manual versus automatic. If you want the automatic option for the GR Corolla, that bumps it up to a pretty much even price. They're both about $70,000. In other areas, the fuel consumption is a little bit better in the Golf as well. You've got 8.3 litres per 100 kilometres for the official test, and you can get pretty close to that. I actually was getting 8.3 before I started the performance testing, so it is possible to get exactly that, while the Corolla is rated at 8.4, not far off, but I find that it uses a little bit more, probably because it's manual and you're revving it a bit more to get off the lights and so on. And yeah, you just end up being in a higher gear, or a lower gear than you should be, I guess, depending on how you drive. The Golf is a little bit more practical as well. Like, you've got 213 litres of boot space in the Corolla, while you've got 374 in the Golf R. So there's a pretty big difference, but also the rear seat area, I mean, in both of them, it's pretty tight. The Golf R, you've got fairly chunky bucket seats, but a reasonable amount of room, and they're pretty cool seats as well. They've got like little side bolsters, kind of similar to the front. Not much room in the middle, as with the Corolla as well, but I just feel like the Golf is just a little bit more practical. Well, it's got more boot space, so yeah, just a tiny bit more practical. In terms of the ride comforts, they're both pretty firm, they're both pretty hardcore. I think the Golf is, actually, no, they're pretty similar, actually. The Corolla is good when you're smashing over bumps, like if you're on a country road or something like that, and you just really smash into the bumps, it seems to soak them up. Whereas this, it's kind of even, but when you hit a bad country road, it does crash a little bit in comparison to the GR Corolla. So I guess it depends where you're spending most of your time. If you're on the dirt, for example, then I would take the Corolla. These big rims, they're very low profile tires, 235 35s on a 19-inch rim. So yeah, very thin tires on the Golf. But yeah, I think the overall refinement is better in the Golf. Like if you're driving around the city and so on, it just feels a bit nicer inside. It does have the latest touchscreen, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it is better than the previous touchscreen that Golf's had. Whereas the Corolla has got a pretty basic setup. It depends on what you like. If you want technology and so on, then you're probably going to go for the Golf. It's got the bigger screen. And then in terms of handling, look, they're both machines at corners. This thing, again, is very unassuming. Drive it normal, you think, oh, this is not that good. Take it down a nice, tight, winding road, or even take it to the track, and just flog the absolute guts out of it, and it just responds. It just loves it. You wouldn't believe it when you first drive it, but it just absolutely loves being punished. The all-wheel drive system sorts it out. There's a drift mode, but it kind of just sends all the power to the outside rear wheel, well, not all of it, but a lot of it, to help pivot it around. But even in the Nürburgring mode, it's kind of like the race mode, it feels like it's got a lot of torque going to the rear axle and helps push you around. The GR Corolla does have 3 different settings for the torque distribution, so that as well, you can have a 70-30, I think, so 70 going to the back, 30% going to the front, or it might be 60-40. I'll flash up the exact specs now, but you can get it to kind of do the same thing. But I feel like the Golf's setup is a little bit better in the real world on country roads. If you're on the track or on the dirt, might be a completely different story. Either way, they're both awesome packages, and I think it's really good that they're both on sale in Australia, especially in this day and age, without hybrid tech, without electronic or EV tech or anything like that. They're just raw four-wheel drive turbo cars. Let me know what you think though. What would you take out of these two, considering they are pretty much the same price?